There's a version of helping that looks like generosity from the outside. And there's a version that, from the inside, doesn't feel like a choice at all. Most people who live in the second version can't easily tell you when the line disappeared. They know they're helpful. They know people rely on them. They know they often show up for others in ways nobody asked for, in moments when they probably should have been somewhere else entirely, for people who may not have even needed it. And when you ask them why they help even when they're exhausted, even when it costs them, even when a part of them was clearly saying stop, the answer they give is usually something they can't quite finish. I don't know. I had to. And that's the word that matters. Had to. Because there's a specific kind of person for whom helping isn't a preference. It's something that happens, reliably, automatically, almost without consultation, when the conditions are right. Someone struggling nearby. Problem that could be solved. A person who looks like they need something. And before a conscious decision has been made, the compulsive helper is already moving toward it. And here's what's curious. The discomfort for this person isn't in helping. It's in not helping. It's the quiet agitation that arrives when they see a need and don't fill it. The low hum of guilt that follows them out of the room when they said no, or said nothing, or stayed in their seat when someone else was struggling. The feeling, and this is the important one, that something is wrong with them for not doing more. That feeling is the tell. Because it means the helping was never entirely about the other person. It was about managing that feeling. Research in motivational psychology, particularly the work of Edward Deci and Richard Ryan at the University of Rochester, whose self-determination theory is one of the most replicated frameworks in the field, draws a critical distinction between two types of motivated behavior. Autonomous motivation. Doing something because you genuinely want to, because it connects to your values, because it gives you something real. And controlled motivation. Doing something because something else is driving you. Pressure, guilt, the avoidance of a feeling you don't want to have. Helping can come from either one. And the difference between them is invisible from the outside. But not from the inside. Being strong, for some people, was never a personality trait. It was a survival strategy. In an environment where needing things made things worse, being strong kept you safe. That strategy worked. It also cost you something. You may not have noticed you were paying. I've written about what that cost looks like over time. Link in the description and first pinned comment. What the research consistently shows is this. Behavior driven by the need to escape a bad feeling, rather than by the pull toward something good, tends to escalate over time. Not stabilize, escalate. Because the relief is temporary. The anxiety comes back. And the only way to bring it back down reliably is to help again. Which means the behavior isn't really about generosity at all. It's a regulatory loop. Help. Relief. Anxiety returns. Help again. And somewhere inside that loop, the original question, do I actually want to do this? Stops getting asked. Psychologist Jennifer Crocker's work on contingent self-worth adds another layer to this. When a person's sense of value becomes structurally dependent on being helpful, on being the person who solves things, who shows up, who makes things better, the option of not helping doesn't feel like rest. Feels like self-erasure. Like something essential about them stops being true if they put their hands down. And that is a very different thing from wanting to help. That's needing to help in order to remain themselves. Now, there's something that almost nobody tells people who live inside this pattern. You can recognize a compulsive helping loop by what happens in the pause before the action. When there's a clear opportunity to help, and you take that brief moment before moving, what do you feel? Is it the pull of something you want? Or is it the push of something you're trying to get away from? Most compulsive helpers, when they stop long enough to notice, find it's the second one. The fear of the guilt. The discomfort they've learned to associate with not helping. The agitation that arrives when they consider the possibility of staying still while someone near them needs something. And here's what that means. It means the helping, as constant and as generous as it looks from the outside, is not primarily a gift being given. It's a cost being managed. A way of staying ahead of a feeling that was never fully examined, never really named, just handled. Through action. Again and again. The compulsive helper isn't more loving than other people. They're more afraid of what happens when they stop. And recognizing that distinction is the beginning, for the first time, of actually choosing. But here's something else. Something you feel but can't always explain. That sits underneath even that. Most people in this pattern didn't build it consciously. They built it in response to something. An environment, early on, where being useful was the version of them that received the most consistent positive signal. Where being capable kept the peace. Where helping made them legible to the people who mattered most. Safe, predictable, necessary. And the nervous system learned. That's what nervous systems do. They learn what works and they automate it. And what worked in that environment was: if you're useful, you're okay. If you're helpful, you're loved. If you stop, if you rest, if you say no, if you take up space without giving something back, the equation breaks. That equation is still running. Even now. Even in rooms that are nothing like the one where it was written. And that's what makes it so hard to see from the inside. It doesn't feel like a pattern from childhood. Feels like just who you are. There's another layer to this that compounds everything else. When helping becomes the primary regulatory strategy, the thing the nervous system reaches for, automatically, to manage the discomfort of seeing an unmet need, the identity eventually reorganizes around it. Not just the behavior. The story of who you are begins to include being a helper as something foundational. The reliable one. The capable one. The person who shows up. And that story becomes load-bearing. Which means that not helping, saying no, resting, allowing someone else to carry something, doesn't just feel like inaction. It starts to feel like a small crisis of identity. Like something essential about who you are is at risk when your hands are down. This is part of what makes the pattern so invisible from the inside. Because it doesn't feel like a coping strategy anymore. Feels like character. Feels like values. The difference between "I'm helping because I want to" and "I'm helping because stopping feels like erasing myself" is one of the most difficult distinctions a person can make from inside their own patterns. The nervous system can't tell the difference between who you genuinely are and who you were trained to become. Just runs the program that worked. And the question, the one that opens the door slowly, is not "why can't I stop helping?" It's "who was I before helping became the only answer I knew how to give?" I want to give you something. Before this video ends. Permission. To be tired. To not want to help right now. To have a need and say it out loud. To take up space without earning it first. These are not radical things. But for some of us they feel like they are. I've written about why. And what slowly starts to change. Link in the description. And in the first pinned comment. Now I want to ask you something directly. Think about the last time you chose not to help. Not because you couldn't, because you actively decided not to. You saw the need, you had the capacity, and you said, "Not this time." How did that feel in the moment of deciding? If what comes up is guilt, immediate, disproportionate, hard to justify, that's worth sitting with. Because guilt of that speed and that intensity isn't a moral response. It's a conditioned one. And conditioned responses aren't character. They're history. And then there's this. Think about the last time someone helped you and you let them. Fully let them. Didn't minimize it. Didn't immediately plan how to return the favor. Didn't feel vaguely uncomfortable under the weight of someone else's attention on your needs. For the compulsive helper, that second experience is often the harder one. Because receiving means being the one who needed something. And needing something for some people is exactly the feeling this entire pattern was built to avoid. That's not a small thing to understand about yourself. It also isn't the end of the story. The people who can't stop helping are not broken. They built something adaptive out of something difficult. A way of moving through the world that kept them connected, kept them valuable, kept them safe in the specific environment where that safety mattered most. What costs them now is what once protected them. Understanding that doesn't immediately change the loop. But it does something the loop was never designed to allow. It puts a pause in between the feeling and the action. And in that pause, small as it is, there's the beginning of a choice. Maybe that's where it starts. Not with stopping entirely. Not with becoming a different person overnight. Just with noticing in the moment before you move, which version of helping you're about to do. The one that comes from wanting to. Or the one that comes from not being able to stop. That distinction, practiced slowly, is what eventually changes things. If something in this video landed for you today, leave me a comment. Tell me one moment where you helped and afterward wondered whether you actually wanted to. I read every single one. And if you're not subscribed yet, this channel exists for exactly this kind of conversation. Subscribe because what comes next goes even deeper into where this pattern starts. Earlier than most people expect. You don't want to miss it.